going on? This is BK1
This is Anthony Newis
from Bones Beeker, and we're chilling out with Theorematic. Sometimes when we talk about the way that it began, it makes it sound like we had a conversation and made a choice, but that's not really what happened. You know, we were in proximity. We both loved music. We both loved talking music. We liked being around each other. Yeah, and so we started off making songs and nothing more. You know, we weren't trying to play shows. We weren't trying to make an album. We weren't trying to have a band with a band name.
We specifically did not want to play shows.
Yeah.
At that time.
Right.
You know,
and then
no intention.
And then I think when we really turned into a band, if I had to pick a moment, was, you know, we were recording everything in Pro Tools down here in my basement. And that meant that all the songs lived on my computer. And we'd gotten up to like 6, 7, maybe even 8 songs. Again, didn't think we were a band, didn't think we were making a project. And Tony was just like, hey, you have everything on your computer. Would you mind burning me a CD just so I can hear what we have? I was like, oh yeah, sure. And as a DJ, it's just kind of my natural inclination to try to find a good order to put things in, you know, sequence them well. And by the time I was hitting burn on it, I was like, this is the beginning of a record. These all go together and they make a lot of sense, and we're doing something kind of awesome here.
We did know that pretty soon after we started, we wanted the song to have a home. We wanted to tour, we didn't want to play. And then, so when things were ready, we kind of sent it out to a few friends. It started to get positive feedback. I mean, the radio station was already starting to play something. It's kind of like, maybe we should back up and, you know, sort of think through this. So then we talked about, you know, some of our favorite labels over the years, Sub Pop, or something like that. Maybe Stone Throw, I think we talked about.
Yeah.
And yeah, then I guess we just kind of pitched it to them.
Yeah, we put together, you know, the nice thing in the digital age is you can send stuff out to a ton of people and it doesn't cost any more money. That, you know, it used to be that you had to package everything and lick the envelope and buy the stamps and everything.
Cassette tape in,
you know. Yeah. So honestly, Wax Poet. So my memory is that we were struggling with what kind of label would be a good home for us.
Who's the audience? You know.
Well, especially because, you know, the album, as you listen to it, each song is stylistically really different from what came before it and what comes after it. I think it flows really well. I think it's a cohesive listen. But it's just kind of all over the place in terms of style. And so I have a memory of us like, okay, forget it as a big project. Just think about it as songs. Who are some bands that some of these songs sound something like? You know, and it was like, okay, well, we've got a song or two that kind of sounds like Vampire Weekend. What label are they on? You know, like, what about Tune Yards? What is she on? You know?
That's just weird.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so we made this list and we sent out kind of our whole spiel, you know, like a bio and the album and some words about what we had planned and some other stuff, you know. And we sent it to all these different labels that kind of halfway made sense based on who was already signed to them. And then I remember at the last minute just being like, Wax Poetics has a label. They're amazing. You know, like, it was almost just kind of done like, oh, why the fuck not? You know, like, I knew they weren't going to call us back. But why not?
I don't even know if I knew they had a label. I just knew their magazine, you know?
Yeah. And then they were the very first label to hit us back. And they were...
like within a day.
Yeah, they called the next day and were like, we want this album. And at the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, crazy. Well, that's a huge vote of confidence. You know, like that magazine is terribly important to me. You know, I mean, right up there is every issue that's ever come out, you know?
It was almost like, I got to read this email again. Are they for real? You know, it kind of felt that way.
Yeah, a little bit. But then by the time kind of all the options were on the table, it seemed it was more or less a no-brainer to go with them. You know, they were passionate about the music. They got where we were coming from and who our influences were, even what some of the samples were. You know, and their magazine is something like our album. You know, it's just this like weird melting pot for a bunch of really bizarre, kind of rare, but ultimately beautiful ingredients, and finding things that they have in common. And
we just sort of love the mindset of the folks there. You know,
Yeah.
like we have similar mindsets, I think.
yeah,
It's such a funny question because you always sound like a pretentious dick, and you're like, well, we don't really sound like. And so I was sort of waiting to hear from what other people would say. But my cheap answer has always sort of been like the Beach Boys meet hip hop, something like that. That's my real general.
yeah. I've always said a sample based Paul Simon.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't really have a good elevator speech down for this band yet. I think what we sound, I think there's some things that are in common. As you listen to the album, stylistically, you can't say this is what we're like as a style. You can't say we're a funk band or we're an indie rock band or a this or that. I think what you can say is that each song has sort of a spirit of experimentation and fearlessness. I think that there's some elements that are the same from song to song. Tony has a really strong vocal presence on the album with pop-driven melodies, really rich harmonies, multi-track vocals, and kind of a beautiful falsetto that lives at the top. At the bottom, Chris Bearden, who's a really great bass player from the band Polisa, he plays on every song on the album. And he's got this kind of Paul McCartney style of playing, at least on this record.
Pop music. Kind of pop music.
Yeah, but it's not real rooted in the one. You know, like it's very melodic bass playing, which is a style that I've always really loved. And I think that's pretty consistent from song to song. So I think you got Tony on the top, Chris on the bottom, and then me just throwing the kitchen sink of weird sounds at you in the middle, and somehow that is our sound. Doesn't make for a good elevator pitch, but that's the truth. That's what we sound.
The last two shows we played, I will say, I never meant for this to happen. I always did in my younger years. I always wanted to create something new, and I stopped giving a shit about that. Our last show, someone said, "I think you created a new thing." And the show before that, someone said, "I think you created a new genre." I don't know if I guess I never told you that.
No.
But the answer he's giving you is really like, we're not too sure, you know?